So, good morning, everybody. It is morning here at Israel. I'm kind of in a mood to kind of do the shir. Just finished going to a shir. There's a sefer, the Chalban, the person, the Chalban, lived in Eretz Yisrael, passed away a couple of years ago. So he wrote these Kabbalistic books. People starting to look into these books. So Friday is a fellow who gives a shir. So it's a very uplifting shir today. That really talks a lot about what's taking place as far as this past week, this past month, what's going on in Israel, especially this week. It's hard to kind of really put into context to talk about Yom hatzmuot, Yom hazikoron, Yom hasha'ah, living in New York or Atlanta or something like that. And I was sitting there, we have a tefillah ma'avar, kind of that passing between Yom hazikoron, Memorial Day, into Yom hatzmuot. So a lot of shuls, a lot of communities do this in Dati Lumi shuls. You have a tekes, you have a soldier speak, you have more of a sad approach, Yom hazikoron, 1,000 soldiers, terror victims. And then all of a sudden, you blow the shofar, it goes right into Marav, you say Kuv Zayin, Hod L'Shem Ki Tov, Tehillim, and then there's a great davening, and you go right into it. They blow the shofar, dancing, cotton candy for the kids, the whole thing. So it's interesting to kind of understand this, and the point really is to kind of understand the context. You can't really appreciate what takes place without looking at the context of things. We know this concept really well by Pesach. We don't just wake up and say, let's talk about Avodim Hayinu. We don't talk about Makos, and then Pesach, boom. No, we go back to Lavan days, talk about Terach days. To really appreciate where you are, you have to really have a sense of where you come from and what you appreciate from your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents. And with that proper context, you kind of know what you understand, where you are, what your place is as a father, as a husband, as a grandfather, to kind of really understand what it means to kind of pass things along and to kind of put things in proper context. And this fellow, Rabbi Sussman, who kind of mentioned the hot dogs. So in Israel, I'm sure everyone here either lives in Israel or has been to Israel. So the hot dogs is a big conversation piece. Every kid and adult, let's be really honest, that's the big thing. Oh, having a barbecue, American hot dogs, that's literally the thing everyone talks about. It doesn't matter who's coming to the barbecue, it doesn't matter what the purpose is, it's to see him, it's Shayra. What, American hot dogs? Yeah, Ebels and Hyman. Hot dogs is a big deal. So this fellow Rabbi Sussman mentioned, hot dogs. I'm looking at him. What about hot dogs? He goes, well, I had a barbecue on Yom hatzmuot, and the kids' first thing was, these aren't the same hot dogs. These are, the Chaim hot dogs, or the Israeli hot dogs, not the same hot dogs. And he's looking at them funny. He's like, you don't understand something. We're in Eretz Yisrael. We have our own country. We're here at Yom hatzmuot. We have our own house. We came from, 5 towns or something he came from. And we get to celebrate in Eretz Yisrael and thank Hashem for the land. We have our own government. We have all these things. And focusing on hot dogs, come on. And the truth is, that's kind of really what the Chalban talks about, is living in a small world as opposed to living in a global world. When you think about small pieces, what's the weather like today? I have a headache. The hot dogs aren't right. The chicken is overcooked. All those things. You think small-minded, and you think small-minded, then everything in your world is magnified. You have someone cuts you off on the road, someone does something to you at work. If all you think about is yourself all the time, your small little room of your world, then everything that happens is a big deal, I guess, to you. But when you kind of think globally, and you think of context, and you think, you know what, it's just work, it's just this, it's just that, because I'm focused on greater things, I'm thinking about the context. I'm in Eretz Yisrael, or my family's healthy, or we're alive today. Then if someone cuts you off and takes your parking spot, not that big a deal, because now you're a big world, and a parking spot is very small in the big context of that. So the Chalban talks a lot about this context, and that's kind of really what I think. When you go to a barbecue and you think about hot dogs, you miss the point. You go to Yom hatzmuot and in Eretz Yisrael, you go to a picnic and you go to a barbecue. If you're really concentrating on the hot dogs, you're missing the point. You're missing the point that there was Yom hazikoron, that thousands of soldiers died for the land. Terror victims, they died just from going down the street, just because they wanted to live in Eretz Yisrael. We believe we should be here. It's our land. But if you think about hot dogs, yeah, that's small-minded. And the purpose, the way that the founding fathers of Eretz Yisrael, I don't know who thought of it, is Yom HaShoah, a week before, thought about the Holocaust victims. And Yom hazikoron is literally the day before Yom hatzmuot. You can't just walk into Yom hatzmuot and think, well, Israel, we arrived, we're good to go. No, there's really a context here. And that's kind of really, I think, the purpose of not just thinking about Eretz Yisrael, but think about Matan Torah. ER, I mentioned last week, is not just flyover month, flyover country. It's not like, well, we have Pesach, we have Nisan, that's great. We have Sivan, Shavuos, that's great. ER is just a place where we start saying Tachanun again. ER Bays, my birthday, also the day that we start saying Tachanun again. Oh, ER is the worst. No, ER is pretty important. ER is that bridge. ER is the bridge and the pathway, because Sphira it's all in ER just about. And the pathway to get from Geula of Mitzrayim to really deserving it on our own work, get the Torah, is ER. We got to work on ourselves in ER. So it's a bridge. Everything is a bridge, knowing the context. And as I was thinking about this, I thought, this is maybe a kesher with this parsha, achrei kedoshim. There's a lot to talk about, achrei kedoshim. We talk about the part that's living after life. That's that we should strive to be achrei kedoshim. We should live for that, not just focus on ourselves in this world. A lot of tie-ins are achrei kedoshim. But one interesting thought I thought was, we know that Nadam and Avihu, achrei kedoshim, the Nadav die, even though it wasn't at this moment. They died in Nisan, and this parsha talks about Yom Kippur. So Akmos, why are we talking about Nadav and Avihu? So a few reasons or different causes why they died. 3 different reasons: either they went in Ketores, they weren't supposed to, or they had wine they weren't supposed to, or it says at the end in Bamidbar, they had no children. What is that? Some people don't have children. It's not reason for them to be killed. The point is, by not wanting to get married and not looking to have children, you're missing something. You're kind of missing this age zara, that you're doing wrong avoda, because our job is to look at context, to look to see what our parents did, our grandparents. If you don't have a sense of family, you don't have a sense of where you belong in your family chain, then you don't have sense of self, and also you can't pass it on to your children. So if you don't really know your context. So Nadav and Avihu, as great as they were not going to get married. You're missing something, because the point of living is to understand where you came from and then pass those lessons to your children and grandchildren. If you're lacking that, that's not for me, I don't want to do that, then your whole avoda is avodah zara. It's all wrong. So perhaps this is a kesher with the parsha as well, is that we have to understand where we came from. We understand our context, our history, and only then can we really do the avodah that Hashem wants. Just this past week, so there's a project that they took up in Eretz Yisrael this year. I think for the first time, it's called the kedoshim. So different schools, different yeshivas, different places, they actually took upon themselves to learn Torah for a fallen soldier. So a lot of groups signed up, and our shul did ksubas. So you pick a daf and put it in the website, and it gives you a biography of a soldier. So I'm looking through all the Gemaras and the names. I said, Yehuda. This guy Yehuda Folt. Okay, Yehuda Folt. It's a picture of him, black and white picture. Died in 1942 in Israel somewhere. Okay, I learned Gemara, Ayin Ches and Ksubas, Yom hazikoron. Nishmas Yehuda Folt. And then I kind of did a little bit of research into who this person was, what was available. And online, it gives you a little bit of context. And actually look this up. It's called the Ein Gedi disaster. So everyone knows Ein Gedi because they go swimming there. You go to Ein Gedi, it's beautiful, swimming. So you walk into Israel, you go Ein Gedi, the first thing in your mind is swimming. It's hot, going to Masada, you go to Ein Gedi, it's nice and cool, beautiful. But if you're from Israel, you heard of the Ein Gedi disaster, which I never heard of because I was born in America. But there was these youth groups in the 40s, in the early 40s, Shomer Hatzair, different groups that they were training for the army, that they were training, and they do these marches. And this group of youngsters, teenagers, they were training, and they got grenades, they got guns, they were training to be soldiers. And one fellow dropped a grenade into the fire. He tripped, whatever it was, and as they made a campfire, a grenade fell into the fire, and huge explosions. All the grenades, all the bullets exploded, and 8 young teenagers died. 8 teenagers died, and the survivors had to go look for help. There were no telephones those days in the desert. They were near En Gedi, and they literally had to. They went 40 miles to kind of find help. They went to the Yam HaMelech. Not Yam HaMelech. They went to one of the rivers, maybe Yam HaGadol, and they had to find the Red Sea. I'm sorry, the Red Sea. They had to go find boats going through, and they had to make these makeshift stretchers, and a few of them they actually people survived, but there were 8 deaths. And this Yehuda Folt, and there's actually a memorial plaque somewhere in En Gedi. Next time I go there, I'm going to try to see if I can find it. And that kind of gives a different context to Yom hazikoron, Yom hatzmuot. We're not just waking up looking for hot dogs and crambos and going to a picnic. You have to really think about who came before us. You got to think of the sacrifice that people took. 18-year-old kid, and it's not an easy path. Some days are more difficult than others. We know that there are 250,000 people protesting for this side of the government, and in much trials there'll be 1 million people the other side. So there's a lot of stuff going on in Israel. But this is what Hashem wants. This is the land that Hashem Dorish. This Hashem looks after this land, and we love Eretz Yisrael. And hopefully, we have to thank Hashem. We thank Hashem for everything, the good and the bad, because all the tova. We only see a small little piece. We only see our hot dogs. We don't really see the barbecue sometimes and the full picture. And hopefully, we'll get to the point very soon. All of us will see the Geula, and hopefully, everyone had a great Yom Hatzmuot and has a great Shabbat Shalom from Beit Shemesh.